Detective Comics 1081, Ram V writing with Riccardo Federici and Stefano Raphael on the art. Yeah, very interesting. This actually, I was surprised there was a backup when I
Yeah,
got to it, and the reason why I was surprised was because they did a thing here where when it switched to the B plot and it switched artist, it actually said Huntress in and then gave it a
hmm
title as if it almost was a backup. It's just that
yeah,
it was interspersed throughout the issue. And I thought, oh, that's what they're doing. This is an interesting way of doing it. But then obviously I got to the end and there was still a backup and I went, oh, okay, no, they gave the subplot a title for some reason,
yeah,
which is just it's a very different way of doing it. It kind of
yeah,
worked though.
yeah. I liked it because it was the stuff that was going on back in Gotham while Bruce is on this soul search
Yeah,
in the
he's
desert.
on like a Vision
A Vision
Quest
Quest. That's
sort
what
of
I meant to
thing.
say. Yeah,
Yeah.
so I do like that it does that because it is like the B plot does have to do with Bruce, but not really. So I'm glad that they did the question stuff in its own art style, and showing the impact that Batman and lack of Batman has had on the city while he's going through this series of hallucinations. So
Yeah, the Batman stuff, where he's in the desert that Talia is taking him to,
mhm.
is the Federici art, and it gets into all this stuff where he's got two demons inside him. He's got the will for the asthma try to take over, and he's got the Barbatos Bat demon sort of
Mhm.
try to keep him alive. And as I've said before, I always like to think of Barbatos less as an actual thing and more of just a
An idea.
representation of his,
Yeah.
like
So there's
spirit, if
two
you will.
demons always fighting inside of me, but it's essentially coffee and Taco Bell. But right now they're at a stalemate and they get along. So, Bruce can't say the same.
So yeah, Talia leaves him, gives him some tea before she
hmm
goes. But he basically has to do this journey through the desert where by the time he gets to the other side, one of the demons will have won. And obviously, presumably, the bat's going to win, unless
hmm
the story's going to take a weird turn afterwards, which we're not
Yeah.
expecting. But that's what we would
Which,
think.
as I was reading this, I was like, wow, this is very similar to that story that Talia told Damien way back when this arc started.
Oh yeah,
You
yeah, yeah.
know?
Like they set this up. They talked
Uh-huh.
about this desert way back in that
Yep.
flashback story. Yeah.
So I'm liking all of this, and Bruce going through this realm where Dr. Hurt's talking to him, which is like, okay, that's different. So like, how did Hurt get in here? Um,
Well, if you think he's actually there, I think
no,
that's
that's what I'm saying. This is a piece of Bruce, right? That's active. That's like not that it's a third demon necessarily, but it is a representation of something in Bruce, and I do like that Ramby explores that as well.
yeah. I, like all of this stuff is very, and obviously it leads to a lot of great art where you see the wolf, where you
Yep.
see Barbatos, and
Mhm.
this idea that Bruce is going through all this. And meanwhile, in Gotham, we have Renee Montoya as the Question.
Mhm.
Basically, she's investigating a couple of things, particularly the cop who killed the other cop, but obviously back at about an arc or two
Yep.
ago. She's investigating that, and she's looking into the perpetrator's mother, and eventually discovers that the perpetrator actually has killed himself. She finds him
hmm
in it's like a storage
Storage.
locker or something.
Yep.
Yeah,
A storage unit where we saw Shabad tell him to go kill himself after he killed the partner.
yeah, of course,
Um,
yeah. Uh,
so we see where that goes.
but it's interesting because Montoya, as she narrates this, and she's talking about like looking for things. She sometimes sort of like theorizes what the city is thinking, so we get kind of
hmm
like it's not really the city narrating, but it's like Montoya interpreting what the city might be narrating. And
Yeah.
the city's talking about forgetting that, it had something, it had a symbol in
hmm
the sky, and now it's gone. And Montoya's talking about how, I'm not quite Batman, but like I'm all they've got right now, so I'm going to do
hmm
my best, kind of thing. And you still see a criminal run away. Someone tries to mug the cop's mother and
Yep.
gets scared and runs into the night because they think Batman's going to show up, but he's not there.
Yeah. Yeah, and it's this thing where they're almost operating off of like their lizard brain, right? Is that the Batman is so entrenched into the Gotham that was that even though he's not around and they're starting to forget him, there's something deep in them that is telling these perpetrators to run. And Ram V just has such a skill at putting that out there. This whole idea of almost like it's not even a shadow, but it's almost an echo of Batman. And it's not going away without a fight.
It's interesting because you see like people at their windows looking up, like hoping to see the signal. And this is right when she's doing the thing where she's like narrating as if the city's narrating and saying, "Oh, there's something missing. People are looking up for hope, but it's not there." So it really does sell this idea of what's missing in Gotham if Batman isn't there.
Yeah.
Yeah, all that stuff's really good. And then obviously when you go back to Batman and he's doing all this stuff where he's finding this really weird, creepy tree made up of people. And there's this mysterious character who happens to be there who kind of gives him some exposition. It's all really interesting. It tells Batman he has to find himself and all the rest of it. You got Batman draping his cape across his like mouth, like he's like he's in the desert, I guess. But you know, it makes me think of Lawrence of Arabia. Putting the scarf over your face because of the elements, kind of thing.
So this guy just isn't a guy. This is the hero from the story that Talia told Damian.
Oh, I did not remember that.
Yeah. Well, so that issue made a huge imprint on me. It was one of my favorite issues of Ram V's run. This is what it was doing with the mythology and stories and all this other stuff. It was very on brand for Ram V. So the fact that this is coming back around and that
he is playing the long game for sure. Yeah. He always was.
So you remember in that parable that she tells in the story is that Farhad went across the desert to save his lost love, but by the time he gets to her, she has died, and it's almost for nothing. So the fact that he's here talking to Farhad, and where Talia brought him, right to this desert when he gets back, it's very clear that Batman's love is Gotham, right? And now the stakes are there that he's going to finish out the story, and when he gets back to Gotham, it's going to be dead. It's not going to be his Gotham. And so just for Ram V to tell that story through this vision quest, to Batman potentially returning to a Gotham that's not his, and he's gonna have to show them the fear again. It made me very excited to see where this is going.
Yeah, well, it's not just that though, because he does say to him that the Batman is dead, but the myth may never die as long as there's people who are refusing to forget, and that ties in nicely to what the B plot in this issue is. It's Montoya and some people in the city looking up for the signal and trying to remember. Now, they might forget. By the time Batman gets back, maybe he does have to sort of take it back again. But it's it's very much this kind of hero's journey kind of thing of being broken down as much as he ever has been, only for him to have to build himself back up. That's kind of what we're doing here. But all this art, the coloring's very good. It plays with the idea of the orange glow of the fire, but then when he's back walking away from the fire again, it's all blue and stuff. Just some gorgeous artwork here. The page where he's walking across the top of the sand dunes, and then it kind of forms into the city, and that kind of leads to our cliffhanger, which is that in his vision quest here, Batman has stumbled upon a version of Gotham City that Batman has saved. And we see the Court of Owls. Well, actually, I don't know if they are the Court of Owls.
I don't know, but they're wearing very Court of Owls-esque masks.
Yeah, right? But I'm doubting it now, though, because it's so Dr. Hart's being carried on a throne by all these goons. And I thought they were Court of Owls when I read this, but now that I'm looking at it again, and because they're seemingly working for Dr. Hart, and again, this isn't a real place. This is all just, Batman's vision quest. But I'm now looking at the masks again, and I'm thinking, you know what? They're not actually quite the Court of Owls. I think they're actually just his people, technically.
Yeah, that could be that too. They kind of remind me of the Dolatrons from Professor Pig too. The mannequin faces kind of. But I was getting Court of Owl vibes too when I first read this, and then you look closer, and then again, they can't be by accident. I feel like
I mean, probably not. I mean, the Court of Owls are so tied to the city as well, and in this final panel at the bottom of the page is a Batman demon who this version of the city that's being saved. It's not like someone who looks like Batman who's doing it. It's literally a bat demon, if not Barbatos himself.
Exactly.
So I think this idea of him, sometimes these Vision Quest type stories, if they're not done well, I think it's very, very easy for them to feel kind of like they're up their own ass.
Yep.
So far, I'm not feeling that with this, partly because the art is gorgeous, partly because it's playing on themes that we've been working with this run for a long time. Even though I didn't remember this character from that issue, I remembered that issue in the desert and the parable being told. So I still got this sense of it coming back round, even without some of the details being in my memory still. So I think that stuff's all great. Obviously, the art change here is used effectively, where it is a very, very different setting. And not even just a different setting, but like a different state of mind. Like the Batman stuff, like we say, it's Vision Quest. It's all kind of like open to interpretation. All of it's in his head. It's very much a almost mystical thing. But Gotham, on the other hand, that's literally the reality of what's happening there. So this is one of the most sort of justified art differences between two plot lines that I've seen in a comic. So
for sure,
yeah, that stuff's all very good. But
also want to see that Talia, when she sets Bruce off, right, with the people in the desert and gives him the tea, gives her proper name, which is Talia. So of course I googled what that means, and
of course you did.
Yeah, right. So for Ra's al Ghul, that translates to the demon's head, right? Talia translates to Tears of the Gods. So like Ra's has a thing with names. Like this dude knows. He knows how to make things sound impressive. So I thought that was pretty interesting as well, given that there's these demons fighting in Bruce, right? But the lady that brought in there is named after Tears of the Gods, which goes into that story of the gods sending Farhad on that quest to get his lost love. And so it just, again, it's Ram V tying everything back around. It's almost like a movement in a song, right? And yeah, dude, he's just killing every time. This is one of my favorite Batman stories in a long time.
Yeah, I would even mention there is actually a page of Batman fighting the wolf demon, the Asmer, and he knows it'll come back, but he does seemingly win for now, even though it's weakened him greatly. And this is before he finds the tree and he has all the deep conversations about the city and all the other stuff that's going on. So yeah, all very curious stuff. This is the sort of thing that when you read this run from start to finish in collected form, this stuff is just going to sing even better, I think.
Yeah, it's gonna feel so fulfilling,
Yep. So main story's great. The backup, which I did read, is Dan Waters. It's basically this idea that there's a support group all talking. And honestly, it's quite clear from the start, I think, to the readers what's going on. But over the course of the backup, all the people at this support group realize they're all talking about the same person. The same person has ruined all of their lives, and that is Dr. Hurt. It starts off with this wife who finds out that the marriage was a sham, and that Dr. Hurt had been lying to her and just disappeared one day. After she couldn't get pregnant for the third time, he wanted a child. And then the second guy, this was the one that really stuck out to me, is someone who wanted to be a vigilante / superhero like one of the Bat characters, so wanted training, and this mysterious person decided to train them. It turns out this was Dr. Hurt, of course, and this all boiled up to the night he gets his costume on. Dr. Hurt hands him a grappling hook, but there's no actual rope on the hook.
There's no rope. Yeah.
So the guy just falls, not to his death. We see him with the big back brace on and like the head
and the halo.
Yeah. He's like completely been broken and is never going to live a normal life. That one especially felt very dark to me.
Yeah. Well, because if you remember your Dr. Hurt story from R.I.P. was he was trying to build a better Batman. So the idea, like here, that he gave this man a grapple gun with no rope, like, was that his idea of creating trauma, or what? Like, I don't know what that part of making him into his own Batman was, or is this just to poison the city?
I mean, I didn't really have an idea of why he did it. But it to me, it almost felt like something the Joker would do. It felt like a sick joke, like a really dark, sick joke. But yeah, so, and then the last person was someone who Dr. Hurt, like, did an exorcism to, but it was someone who wasn't possessed, so it was actually it was the person's actual personality or soul, or whatever you want to call it, that got taken out with the exorcism. So now the person that was left afterwards was someone with no memory, and everything had been taken from him. But the ending revelation is that Dr. Hurt was the same person. It was him in all of these stories. So this is to be continued. So we'll see where this goes from here. I mean, this was a very intriguing story. Maybe as the backup goes on into part 2 or 3 or whatever, we'll get a sense of why he was doing all of these things specifically.
And there was a fourth person too that said they're not ready to talk about it yet.
Yes, so presumably we'll get more with them as well.
We'll get more of that, and yeah, this almost felt like the darkest version of the Doom Patrol I've ever seen. You know, because it's all these people that had accidents around Dr. Hurt. You know, and it's led them to this place. So, but yeah, crazy time. I really like the art here. It's got this. It's Hayden Sherman. But there's this again, not quite pulpy, but there's a very like heavy lines and how it works with the coloring and the layouts and all of that. Just everything blends together. It's almost like a not pulpy, but almost like pop art kind of style. And I think it does a really good job at telling the story here.
Yeah, I thought the art worked quite well too. It's sort of like there's this fine line almost between the type of art like this that I don't like versus what I do, and this is on the side that I do. But when I look at this, I can sort of compare it almost to a very flat style of art that I don't like, and say I'm not even sure what I can describe what this does that the alternative doesn't, that makes it work for me. Maybe it's just enough detail versus whatever, but it's a very flat style, you know, in terms of the colors. If you look at the faces and stuff. But anyway, the end of the story, other than them realizing that they're all there because of Dr. Hart, is that one of them's like, hey, do we have it? What do we have it in us to kill this prick? Do we want revenge? Are we going to go and try and kill him? Although specifically calls him the devil. So
right.
It really sets up Dr. Hurt as this big bad that's done all these horrible things to all these people. So it was very effective in that.
For sure.
Yeah. No. Interesting. Interesting to see how this ties in. I mean, obviously, I know Dr. Hurt's coming up in the main story right now, but he's not really there.
No.
So it's
but we did get teases from Ram V in that story that he drew about Hurt being in play.
We did, yeah.
You know.
So we'll see. But that is Detective Comics. Matt, what are you giving the issue?
Hold on to your butts. This is a 9.5.
Whoa! Okay, that's very high.
I really enjoyed this issue.
Yeah, it's very good. It's very pretty. The backup's solid as well. I don't think I'm going to go as high as you, though. I think I'm going to go with a nice 8.5 for me. Yeah. But it is very, very good.